Hello everyone, and welcome back to your daily government and financial news update. As always, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on everything, so make sure to give this video a like, but also leave a comment giving your thoughts on everything that is currently going on. Okay, so in my video on Saturday, I mentioned the Biden administration's plan to send out gas rebate cards, which in the end, of course, would really only end up driving up the price of gas. In today's video, we're not going to talk about those, but we are going to talk about the possibility of $2,000 stimulus checks, yes, those are on the table again, being sent out to residents in a particular state. But first, before we get into that, President Biden said on Monday that he's now considering creating a federal gas tax holiday.
Mr. President, are you considering a pause on the federal gas tax? Mr. President, we know that you're considering it, and Secretary Gunn spoke about it yesterday.
Yes, I'm considering it.
How soon can we expect a decision?
Well, I hope I have a decision based on data I'm looking for by the end of the week. My team is going to be sitting down with the CEOs of the major oil companies this week and try to get an explanation how they justify making $35 billion in the first quarter.
So what this would do is put a pause on the 18.3 cent per gallon federal tax. So over 10 gallons, you would be saving a whopping $1.83. Not a lot, but after all, Biden did say that his administration was looking at all options on the table. Of course, back in 2008, Biden was the vice president to Barack Obama, where Obama called such a move a gimmick on the campaign trail. And now Biden is exploring that option himself. Saving $2 every time you fill up your tank is better than nothing, but what most Americans would like the most is saving $2 per gallon. Here's Republican Senator Mike Crapo also showing why a gas tax holiday would simply be a political gimmick and not a real long-term solution.
Let me begin by saying that my friends and colleagues across the aisle are right about one thing. Gas prices are incredibly high right now in this country. The effort to blame this on what's happened in Ukraine, however, overlooks the real cause of the phenomenal rise in gas prices that we've seen for a year before Putin even invaded. Definitely the invasion did increase pressure on gas prices, but the problem is that this administration's policies have dramatically reduced the supply in the United States, and Americans across this country know how supply and demand impacts price. The gas tax holiday that is now being proposed is not a solution. It is a political gimmick that would not stop skyrocketing gas prices or inflation. In fact, Larry Summers said in a Wall Street Journal podcast, "I think a gas tax idea is saved only by its triviality from being one of the worst public policy ideas of the decade. It will have little effect over any reasonable horizon on prices. It will be counterproductive from an environmental point of view. It is the ultimate policy gimmick." Rather than accept responsibility for 14 months of reckless spending or the more than 40% increase in gas prices that had already occurred before the Russian invasion, Democrats want to blame higher gas prices on the Russian invasion or corporate greed. They also want to ignore the consequences of their relentless attacks on the American oil and gas industry, the administration's overly bureaucratic permit and regulatory process for domestic energy production, and the misguided policy decisions like canceling the Keystone XL pipeline. The solution to rising gas prices is not a tax holiday, which would offer little relief but threaten infrastructure investments and worsen our national debt situation. Nor is the solution a tax on American companies who increase their production of oil and gas to try to help us become more energy independent. Nor is it stimulus checks, which have the potential, as the past ones have, to increase gas prices even further and push inflation even higher. Nor is it to encourage other hostile regimes to produce more oil. The only lasting solution to our current problems is to bolster American oil and gas production to replace not only Russian imports, but to facilitate exports to support our allies and end their dependence on Russia. Indeed, I, along with a number of my Republican colleagues, have sponsored proposals to enhance U.S. energy independence and undo many of President Biden's misguided energy policies. Republicans believe we can and should be doing more to unleash America's domestic energy potential, reduce reliance on volatile foreign actors like Russia, and deliver cost savings to middle-class families across the country. Hardworking American families need real relief, not political gimmicks. And that's why I oppose this gas tax holiday. I urge my Democrat colleagues to abandon the reckless spending and tax policies that have already failed, but which seem to be contemplated in the president's now newly reintroduced budget, and support proposals that will actually lower prices for everyday Americans. And for those reasons, Mr. President, I do object.
Senator Crapo says the real solution to lowering gas prices is to bolster American oil and gas production in order to replace Russian imports, but also to facilitate exports to support our allies and end their own personal dependence on Russia as well. Of course, this is something President Biden is not willing to do, as these are policies his voters would not be willing to support, and his supporters are the only thing keeping him up on his bike, so to speak. Okay, so with rising gas prices and inflationary prices everywhere, according to a new Yahoo News YouGov survey, voters now prefer Donald Trump over President Biden by 44 to 42%.
Consider this. A new Yahoo News YouGov survey found that if the presidential election were held today, voters prefer Donald Trump to President Joe Biden 44 to 42%. Like the markets, Biden's approval rating continues to decline. He's now at 56% disapproval, 47% say strongly, with only 39% approving. And there's no mystery as to what's driving those numbers. A new poll from Quinnipiac says 34% of Americans rank inflation as the most urgent issue facing the country today.
Of course, this isn't necessarily a stamp of approval for Donald Trump, as beating the most unpopular president of all time in President Biden by just 2% isn't exactly a huge achievement. Now, if Republicans run someone out there like Ron DeSantis, who I believe would fare much better in a presidential election than Trump, only because he refrains from saying the things that sometimes turn people off on Twitter and things like that, I personally think that DeSantis would win in a landslide against President Biden. So on that, we'll just have to wait and see. Now, back to those stimulus checks I mentioned. In the state of Pennsylvania, their governor, Tom Wolf, is now pushing for $2,000 direct payments using, get this, ARPA funds. According to Fool.com, the plan would make use of uncommitted federal funds from the American Rescue Plan that was signed into law by Biden to send $2,000 to Pennsylvania citizens with household incomes of $80,000 or less. Now, currently, Pennsylvania has more than $2 billion in uncommitted ARPA funds. That's a lot of money. And states have until the end of 2024 to put those dollars to good use, or, you guess it, they return to the federal government. So the governor of Pennsylvania is saying that if we have $2 billion sitting in an account unused, in 2025 we'd have to send that money back to the federal government anyways, so we might as well use that money to help residents out in the state. Now, in total, these stimulus checks would not total up to the full $2 billion. Instead, it would use just a fraction of it. Additionally, Wolf wants to dedicate $225 million for small business support, $325 million for healthcare investment, and $204 million in property tax relief. And even though the plan currently has Democratic support, it would support if they had a Democratic-controlled assembly. Republicans have other ideas. Instead of sending the money directly to citizens, which they believe will add even more inflation, Republicans have other ideas, such as improving bridges or using those funds towards future budget deficits. Now, at this time, like I mentioned, Pennsylvania does have a Republican majority General Assembly, so unless Democrats can somehow get them on board with the plan, which is unlikely, this is a proposal that is unlikely to pass and then get signed into law. Let's wait and see, though. In some money news, the market once again reopens today, where Dow futures are currently up 1.77%, S&P 500 futures up 1.97%, and NASDAQ futures up over 2%. After a brutal week last week in the markets, investors do hope to see a good rebound in the market. Now, of course, tech stocks have been hit the hardest this year, with Netflix down over 70% year to date, and Facebook down over 51% this year. Meanwhile, Bitcoin, which briefly dropped below the $18,000 mark over the weekend, has since pretty strongly rebounded and is now back over $21,000 per coin. Whether or not it can get back up to the $30,000 or $40,000 mark at the end of this year, we'll just have to wait and see. We've seen time and time again that Bitcoin can move up real fast, so it definitely wouldn't be a bad time to get in at these prices. Now, if you haven't started investing, now certainly wouldn't be a bad time with these greatly discounted prices, both in the stock market and of course Bitcoin as well. So if you would like to get started with 6 free stocks, in the comment section, I will pin a comment with the link where you can claim 6 free stocks from Webull. Additionally, if you activate Webull Crypto and complete at least one trade, it has to be at least $1, you will be able to claim $5 of Bitcoin or of course any other cryptocurrency of your choosing. But on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. If you enjoyed the content in today's video and you would like to see more like it, I would encourage you to give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, and also ring the notification bell. That way you will be the very first to be notified when I do release future videos. And until next time, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.